This week on Sprague Woodturning, I've got some copper pipe and I've got some bamboo. Hoping I'm not going to regret this decision. That's next. So you can see I've got quite a bit of this stuff. Funny thing, I was trying to figure out how to take out the centers of this stuff. So I've never worked with bamboo before, but every place that you see one of these, it's actually blocked inside. These come from Alan down in Mississippi, I think he's in. And in order to ship them, you had to drill down through them so to make sure that they were dry before he shipped them. So thanks, Alan. There's a lot of stuff here. I mean, I've got this full as well. Lots of project ideas. My brain's been on overtime since I got this. Now, I was sitting here figuring out exactly what I'm going to do this week, and I heard a big pop. And when these got here, I threw them in my fridge kiln for, well, they've probably been in there for a good solid 2 weeks anyway. And this just, there's so much tension on these. I mean, I can't even push that together now. So I heard a big pop, and it sounded like these things. So anyway, there's that. So I don't know, we might be able to use that in some other capacity. At this point, I'm thinking this is either going to be a vase or it's going to be a hull form. But these are all roughly 12 inches long. And the way that I've been cleaning out the inside of these, again, I've been just kind of experimenting without you. If I can find one here. Yeah. Some of them don't have any of these little sections in them, which are great. Yeah, there's one there. So I was able to clean that out. And basically what I've been doing is just using these different size spade bits, because there's all different sizes of these, of course. And as far as kind of grinding out the inside to make sure that it's, you know, relatively clean on the inside, I've just been using this Typhoon bit that I got from Lee Valley. It's just a burr is what it is. And it actually does a really good job cleaning out those ridges on the inside. So, you know, first thing that we're going to have to do is cut these to length. And along with that, I've got two different sizes of copper pipe. This is 3/4, and I think I've got 1/2 inch as well. So we're going to incorporate that into this. I don't know if that's a wise move. I know that this bamboo is probably going to be very hard to begin with. But when I go over, I'm going to chop these down to probably 10 inches on the on the chop saw. What I'm going to do, like, I can get to this one easy enough, this one as well, but if you've got one that's in the middle like this, well, you can't really reach it. So once this is cut down to 10 inches, I'll be able to get at these and clean them out. Anyway, let's go over to the chop saw. We'll chop down a bunch of these, and then we'll go from there. Welcome to the video. Yeah, thanks again, Alan, for sending these to me. I really do appreciate it. One thing about cutting these, well, on the chop saw or the bandsaw, they're quite slippery. So make sure you've got a real good grip on these, or else they could spin in your hands. They're quite slick on the outside of them. So that's something. So anyway, what I did was I cut off, if there was a bad end that was, say, had a bad split in it, I cut that end off first, and then, of course, cut them all to length. And like I said earlier, you know, just using different spade bits to open these up wherever I can. And, of course, using that large Typhoon bit really was the answer here. These are very slippery on the inside and the outside. So I'll be addressing the inside here in a minute. But this method actually worked fairly well. Some were a lot easier to work with than others. The smaller ones like this one were a little difficult to do. Yeah, I couldn't fit that in. So then there's another Typhoon bit, and it works absolutely fantastic. Just enough to open up that cavity so that I can get the larger burr in there. But yeah, lots of different spade bits. So once I had the insides all hollowed out, then I used some 60 grit and stripped all of the shine off of these. I think that this is an absolutely crucial step that you cannot skip, because I think that if you do skip it, you're going to have a failed casting. But yeah, you can see it's quite rough. And again, I just turned a small piece of pine and then used the live center to hold the other end, and just, yeah, use that 60 grit. Don't spare it. Clean it off. Also, where those little blocked areas are, I do find that's almost like a little resinous area, so it's important to try and get rid of that too. Now this is the copper pipe. I'm going to use a metal cutting bandsaw blade here, and that works quite nicely. And once we've got these all cut the length, we have to do the same process with these as well. I mean, epoxy, yeah, $17 for, I think it was a 6-foot length of 1/2-inch copper pipe. Wow. So same process. Again, the epoxy is not going to stick to this, so you have to rough it up inside and out. And there you can see that's got a really nice bonding surface. Yeah, the price of copper right now is, well, it's crazy. So what I have here is a 3/8 inch dowel, and as you can see, I cut a slot in it. And this is some 60 grit off of my Supermax drum sander that I've cut down to fit into here. And we're going to use some Flash Bond medium to hold this in place, and then that way I can sand on the inside of this. I may have to get a larger one for the bamboo. Bamboo is very important because it's very smooth on the inside of it, and I'm a little worried about the epoxy sticking to it. So I think that this is probably my best option now that I can think of. I'm sure there's probably better ideas, but, well, I can't think of them right now. So that's what we're going to go with. There. I can see me doing this a number of times until we get this done. So I'll keep the glue handy. So in a perfect world, I would have had a dowel that was as long as the pipe was, so I wouldn't have to shut the lathe off and turn it back on, and after I've reinserted the copper pipe in the other end. But I didn't have any longer lengths of this size, and I couldn't use anything larger, and I certainly didn't want to use anything smaller. And so anyway, I had to swap out the sandpaper for different sizes, like I said, and this method actually worked quite well. I was quite surprised at how well this worked. I never even broke the dowel. I figured that somewhere along the way that I would break the dowel, but it's the same process for the bamboo and for the pipe. So I thought I would show you this before we do this. Now, the problem with the bamboo is there are some splits on the ends of these, so you just can't cap the ends of these and hope that they don't leak. So this is like a saran wrap, plastic wrap stuff, and I just made this quick little mount, 5/8 dowel, put the screw in to hold the dowel in place so it doesn't move out, and then that way I can reuse this, because I have a feeling this isn't going to be the last time that I use this. But anyway, we've got a few to do. I might even do the copper pipes in this, but it's probably not really needed. Anyway, at the bottom I'll try and twist it, pull it up, and then I'll wrap it with duct tape all around the bottom, and hopefully it doesn't leak. Might throw another piece of tape around the top here. Yeah, that might even give you a little reservoir at the top, because usually it shrinks off after it's pressurized. Hoping that'll work. I might put some more tape over the bottom just to make sure, but anyway, we'll see. So this method has been suggested a number of times in the comments, to use like a saran wrap type wrap, or the wrap that you put around pallet material. You know, you're stacking stuff on a pallet and you want to wrap it so it doesn't fall over. And so, you know, I thought I would give this a try. Pretty much all of these pieces of bamboo have little fine splits in them somewhere along the way. And really, I don't see any other method that you could use to hold the epoxy on the inside of these. By all means, leave a comment down below if you have another solution. Going to use this as our copper pipe holder, stander up straighter thing. So, you know, this method here does work and it works fine. The one thing that I would recommend is making the holes a little oversized so that you don't have to use a hammer like I'm using there to push them down in. We do get some minor leaks with this, but it's really not that big of a deal. But I think that just by having the hole a little bit oversized, it would work to our benefit. That'll do. Time for some epoxy. For this first pour, we're going to use arc cast, and the main reason for that is because I plan on just putting a little bit in the bottom of the bamboo, but you know, we're going to fill the pipes because there's really no reason not to. And then tomorrow we'll be able to do the pour, the actual pour to fill up the bamboo. We're going to be using the gold, red, light purple hyper shift. That's a popular color here, and swamp green. Now, if I take that hyper shift and put it in the pipes, it's not really going to pop. So we're going to put the swamp green in the pipes and the gold, purple hyper shift in the bamboo. I have absolutely no idea if this is enough, but I guess we'll find out. Now, when it comes to the bamboo, I'm just going to put a little bit in the bottom of it and let it harden and then fill it tomorrow. I want to make sure that there's no leaks. If these do leak at the bottom, they're just going to fill in the cavity that's in the bottom of this piece of wood, and that probably should be it. Anyway, let's see if I can pour this and make a absolutely huge mess. Maybe get a syringe. Any guesses? You think I've got enough here? Oh, it's going to be close, I think. Now, I know down in the comments, people are going to put formulas down there, and please do that. For those who are really curious about this, you could figure this out, but, you know, I just looked at it as, I'll just mix up more when I need it. That's all there is to it. Yeah, I don't know if we're going to have enough or not. I am sometimes surprised at how much these things will take as far as volume is concerned and how much it's going to take to fill them. Almost half used up. And you know, it's the same thing when you're making these things. I did kind of bundle these together to make sure that I had kind of the size I was looking for in diameter to cast with. But it'll shock you how much of this stuff you'll need to actually make a large casting. I'm going to try and pour these larger ones. Looks like we're going to be one pipe short. Okay, I'm going to mix up a little bit more and I'll be right back. This is another 8 ounces, mixed the same way, so it shouldn't really be any difference in the way it looks. Unfortunately, I had to mix that much because, well, in order to just measure it out easily. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I was doing so well. All right, that's good. Levels don't seem to be dropping all that much, so I think we're probably okay. I am trying to top these up right to the top as much as I can. Thought I'd leave these couple of clips in here just to show you what I do with the excess epoxy. Of course, these are globe molds. You've seen me use them here a number of times on the channel. Absolutely love them. Give it a try. I am going to be throwing this in the pressure pot, and I'll throw those globes in there too. All right, that should be good enough to keep those upright enough. We're just going to put a little bit in each one, and hopefully it seals it so that we don't have any issues tomorrow. I'll do one out here and see how it looks. Yeah, you can't really see it anyway. The trick is going to be figuring out which one you did and which one you didn't do. The one suggestion that I would make here is the goal is just to seal up the very bottom and not to put too much in here. Of course, when I mix the next batch the next day, we need it to look the same, and we can see a little bit of it in the final product, but overall it's not a big deal. But just a word to the wise, you just want to seal up the bottom, and that's it. Well, looks like I need to mix up some more of that too. Right back. All right, here's another 8 ounces. Again, just easier to mix that way. Equal parts. I should have stuck with the syringe here instead of doing the pour. As you can see, I'm probably dumping a little bit too much into these here. So, you know, a syringe is easier to control, so that's what I should have used. Okay, well, my camera filled up memory-wise, so I had to change the card. So I don't know how much we got. Anyway, these are full in the bottom a little bit, and I'll put all of this stuff in the pressure pot, and we'll see you tomorrow when we fill these completely to the top after this is set and hopefully sealed anything for any future leaks. Anyway, see you tomorrow. Well, here we are the next day. Yeah, it looks like this one has dropped off, this one here. So the seal must have let go in the bottom of this. Yeah, they all leaked probably a little bit, but this one, yeah, you can see it filled that. Yeah, that's interesting. These larger ones, the hole wasn't as tight and none of them leaked. So you want it snug, but you don't want it too snug because it was breaking the seal on some of these, and that's why they leaked. Regardless, we got some good functional pieces, and that's all that matters. Now, as far as these are concerned, I did quickly have a look at them, and there are no leaks whatsoever. So we're going to just carry on. Actually, if you look at it, it never even really got down into this twisted area at all. And I think they're all kind of like that. Yeah, same deal. So that seems to be a very good method to wrap everything in, and maybe I'll use that whenever I use my homemade buckets when I make them. Maybe I'll just wrap them in this stuff just for some added insurance. This time around, we're going to be using deep casting epoxy from designer Epoxy. There's a fair bit of volume in a lot of these, and you know, my worry moving forward with this was that we would get lots of thermal cracking. So again, we're going to use the same colors that we used yesterday. The Hypershift, as you can see there, I traditionally mix Hypershift a lot stronger than other normal pigments. Keep that in mind if you're looking for that shifty color. I'm just going to transfer this into a smaller container because it's going to be a lot easier to pour. I think we're going to be a little surprised as to how much of this we're going to use. It'll take a shocking amount to fill these. Hopefully I don't need any more than 2 of these really, but I guess we'll find out. I am going to fill them up as much as I can and maybe a little over full. Hopefully we will not lose too much in height. But I mean, look, that's just two of them. Oh man. All right, I'll mix another one up and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've mixed up another 1.5. Let's see how far this gets us. Having that little built-in reservoir area at the top is very handy. Again, if you're going to try this method, I highly recommend using this method and leave it as long as you can at the top, because of course this is when it goes into the pressure pot, it's going to compress and shrink up as it cures. Oh, I don't think I'm going to have enough. I'm going to be just shy. Yes, sir. Look at that. Yeah, I'll mix up probably another 16 ounces and then that should be good. It's probably going to be too much, but since it's a 2-to-1, it's hard to mix smaller amounts of it. Right, this is 350 milliliters or 12 ounces. And this should do it. Another thing that I would do is I would probably degas this epoxy. You can see by the look of it that it has a fair bit of air in it, and that will definitely affect your levels as well when it goes into the pressure pot. All right, that's going to do it. So my plan is to pull this out after 48 hours. Hopefully it will be cured enough to work with. We'll strip the plastic off of these and then we'll do yet another pour and combine things. I don't need to wait for this to fully set before I can use it, because I'm going to be using deep cast again to combine all this stuff. So anyway, I'll see you in 2 days. Well, good morning. Looks like we've been successful. I don't see too much. That one there looks like it may have dropped off a little bit. Did it leak? No, it did not. Anyway, let's get these out. I'm curious to see if any of them leaked, but I don't see anything. Oh wait, no, I do see something, but that could be overspill too. Now this is only 2 days after the pour, so things are still quite sticky and pliable, but should be good enough for us to handle. Little bit of a leak there, but nothing major. Well, that is definitely the way to do that. Tons of prep time in this piece, that's for sure. But, you know, in order to get hopefully a successful casting, sometimes this is what you got to do. Since the epoxy is still not fully set, it's kind of sticky, so that's why I'm wearing the gloves. Also, I found this saran wrap type material. I don't even know what the brand name of this stuff is. I found it kind of sticky as well, so that's why I'm wearing gloves. Now, I don't want to have certain areas where pieces are kind of empty and pieces are fuller, so I thought it was best to just shorten these up a little bit, and I think I might have taken a 1/2 inch to 3/4 off the overall length, something like that. And then of course we had epoxy on the outside of these. Even though it was still technically kind of pliable, I decided to mount it between centers and clean it off again, just to give us a nice clean slate, so that, well, there's no excuses moving forward as to why the casting failed. Again, by this stage, I mean, we haven't even casted this thing together, and I think I had 4 hours of footage to edit before we even to the casting stage where we're going to cast the whole thing. So yeah, tons and tons and tons of prep work, but truth be known, I think this is one of my nicer projects I've done to date. This one here that's short on epoxy, of course that's going to be on the outside too. So that really, hopefully, won't affect our design. Yeah, I fooled around with this for quite some time before I figured out exactly kind of how I wanted it. And I figured that the best way to keep it together would be to use some cable ties. If I would have had the right size rubber bands, I probably would have used them over this. Something like that. Yeah, I probably should have done about another 6 smaller ones. Of course, the main reason why I want to keep these tight is so that they stay upright. I don't want them tilting, so that's the whole idea behind this. I just wish that I didn't have so much here. Oh. All right, just give me a second. Let me think about this. So I've made the decision that I'm going to wrap this with that saran wrap type material. And so it was important to cover those ends where the cable tie had been cut off, because that certainly will punch a hole through stuff. So that's the main reason why I'm taping it with the duct tape. All right, so I don't know if this is going to work or not, but we're going to give this a go and we'll see what happens here. So like I do for most things, I kind of overkilled it again. So you're going to see me wrap it in this direction and then wrap it in this direction. And I cut this off and I stand it up and look at it and go, that might be okay. Like, nah. So I'm going to wrap it again lengthwise and then wrap it again the other way. Trying to set myself up for success here. All right, I don't know if this leaks. I don't know what to say. I don't know if any of these bamboo pieces are going to float or not. They got a fair bit of weight to them, but they may. So I may have to put Dwayne on top of this, but anyway, at least we're finally mixing the resin, the epoxy to combine these together. All right, so just let me get cleaned up and I'll be right back. For this pour, again, we're going to be using deep casting epoxy from Designer Epoxy. Ironically, I don't think there's as much epoxy to combine these pieces as there is to fill them, so I guess that's a good thing. And of course, since we've got quite a large volume here, you definitely need a deep casting epoxy to do this. For this pour, we're going to be using black pearl. Black pearl's, black is a neutral color, and we'll go with pretty much any decor. So if you're making things to sell that you want to remain neutral but have a pop of color, black should probably be one of the colors you're thinking about using to combine things. And of course, the Hypershift blue, green, and gold I'm also going to put in this, so that hopefully we get another dimension to this as well. All right, well, this is your first 1.5 liters. I have no idea how much this is going to take. The copper shouldn't float. We'll see about the bamboo. Wow, it's almost up near the top. I'll do 3/4 liter and I'll be right back. All right, here's 3/4 liter. Hopefully this will do it. Yeah, that Hypershift really turns that green for sure. Good thing about having this ring around the top, at least you can fill it up. I'm going to give it all that I've got here. I'm still very, very iffy about this and leaking. So first thing tomorrow morning, I'm going to open the pressure pot and see what we're looking at. Hopefully it hasn't dropped off. The bamboo really shouldn't absorb all that much, so the level really shouldn't drop. Anyway, wish me luck. I'll let you know how I make out. Oh man, this is heavy. Wow. It's not going to be fun getting in the pressure pot. All right, so it's the next day, and well, surprisingly enough, that epoxy has dropped off that far to where my finger is. Now, ordinarily, I would not do a second pour, but in this case, what I will do is turn this into the bottom, and the form that I intend on making is going to be really cut in at the base like this. So then by having this the base, if the epoxy doesn't match up the same, the vast majority of it's probably going to get turned away, and it really shouldn't really be all that noticeable, if noticeable at all. The epoxy still is fluid, like I can push this into it. So, you know, it's not, it's definitely, there's no need to sand it or anything like that. There won't be any adhesion issues. So I've gone and mixed up 3/4 of a liter, same strength, same everything, and we'll see how we make out with this. But I had to use 3/4 of a liter because of the measurements and trying to get things exactly the same. Now, I don't know if that is just air in the epoxy. Is that why that dropped off so much? This did not leak. I checked it. It looks fantastic. So that was, well, it's about half. About 12 ounces or 350 milliliters is what I just poured in there. So anyway, this will go back into the pressure pot. We'll have to do the reset button on this by a day. And that should be it. It shouldn't go any further than that. We'll see you in 3 days. Now, if I can get this in there without spilling it. Oh, yeah. All right, well, good day. This is what we're looking at. Pretty much the perfect level, just a little bit below it. Again, I haven't pulled this out to even look at it to see where all this epoxy is going, because the only thing I can think is it must be filling up stuff down below. Anyway, well, let's take this out of here and unearth this and see where all this epoxy is going. It didn't leak, I don't think. No? That's pretty wild. I was fully expecting, I did see that one of these copper pipes seems to have moved down. I don't know how that's possible. Anyway, I guess that's the thing. Let's cut this plastic off and see what we're looking at. I mean, I am 100% honest when I say that I'm really shocked that this method worked. I was a bit skeptical, but it was suggested, and you know, there's been a number of people suggested using saran wrap type material for this. Well, there's your proven concept. So thank you to those who have pushed me in this direction to try this. I will certainly be using this method a lot more in the future. You can get a pretty big roll of that stuff, and it's not too expensive at all, really, compared to, you know, what you're making and the cost of it. Anyway, let's see what we're looking at. So I will definitely call this a win as far as the casting gods are concerned. So again, thank you for those who have pushed me to try this stuff. Yeah, it looks like it did pool a little bit down here, so that might explain where some of the epoxy has disappeared to, but overall it's not too bad, really. Somebody asked if the vacuum chamber would have been of a benefit here, and at the time, I certainly didn't see the need for it, but yeah, maybe, possibly. I'll tell you something, it's not easy to get off. Hey, tell ya. The one thing that I would probably do different is degas the epoxy at the bare minimum before putting it in. But, you know, you can see we did definitely lose some to pooling at the base of this. But, you know, overall, it worked fantastic. I think I'll just grind a flat spot on here and we'll get a center. Figure this out best we can anyway. Looks definitely shorter across here than here. Yeah. This stuff, I don't know, once it's mounted on the lathe, I might be able to get more of it off. I just don't want the stuff slapping off my hands when I'm working on it. To grind this down to a good surface, I'm going to be using the Kutzall grinding disc. Absolutely love this disc. I've had this thing for years now and it's still going strong. And just a wooden template, just eyeballing it, looking down on top of it, seems to work for me the best. There are other methods, but I don't know, this seems to work fairly well for me. Yeah, that's probably about as good as it's going to get. That's the number 3 Hercules from Hunter Tool Systems. It's the larger of the two. There's the number 1 and the number 3, but my go-to workhorse is the number 3. Love this tool. So, gloves are a absolute must here. Yes, there is copper coming off and it is hitting me in the arm. It's not a big deal. I know I probably should have been wearing my turning smock when working with this material. However, it just was hot that day and I just didn't feel like being locked up inside of a smock. So that's definitely something that you should consider wearing if you're going to do this. But the gloves for sure, 100%. When you, yeah, and it was actually really loud too, so I just showing that I threw on my hearing protection. Now, I didn't really know how this was going to cut. I've worked with some copper pipe on the channel here before in some inlays, but not to this extent. Yeah, when I first shut off the lathe, I'm like, yeah, you know, this is going to look cool. I just wish that it was more rounder than it is, because it really kind of, I wanted something that was larger in diameter than this, but of course I had to just keep whittling it down and whittling it down until basically I got rid of all of the bad areas. So it ended up being a little smaller in diameter than I wanted. So that's the piece that come off there, and trust me, it is sharp. And that's another reason to wear gloves in this instance. I had totally forgotten that the duct tape was down, still embedded in this. And that was just a reminder that, oh yeah, that's in there. And luckily I wasn't standing in front of it. Again, at this stage, I'm not going to call it sketchy, but you know, I'm not going to stand in the throw of the lathe until we get this thing 100% rounded and gotten rid of all of the stuff that's embedded in this. When that's gone, then I have all the confidence in the world to standing in front of this and working on it. But just how I am standing to the side there, until we get this rounded, I'm going to err on the side of caution. By the way, that piece hit the door over on, you can see in that shot there. My stack of bowls hasn't changed. I still haven't got my seat container moved to its permanent location yet. The excavator isn't on site right now. Anyway, we might as well, I'll give you a house update and tell you where we're at. Yesterday, they set the trusses. The only ones that they weren't able to do were a couple of the dormer trusses, but yeah, the main roof over the garage and the house now has trusses on it. So happy days. That's where we're sitting right now. Unfortunately, it's raining today, so they're not on site. But that's a really cool look. I really, really like the look of this. And if you did happen to miss the second video, that is up on the channel now. I know that YouTube has this habit of removing notifications for some reason. And the third video should be up probably early next week. That's my plan. So look for that. And thanks to those who have watched that. Now you can see some thermal cracks. I am a little surprised by this, and I'll talk about this in a little bit here, but I was really surprised to see how many thermal cracks were actually in this piece, and still the odd piece of tape embedded in it as well. Well, what do you think? So we've lost 2 pipes, possibly 3 pipes that I can think of. Yeah, we got some thermal cracks here and here. A little disappointing in the nose. Still got a little bit of tape embedded there, but once I make the shape here, we'll see if that's a factor or not. More thermal cracking. Again, I can deal with this. It's not really that big of a deal. Probably use some UV epoxy, or sorry, UV resin. But anyway, let's hit this with some denatured alcohol and see what it looks like. That green coming through there. Yeah, there you can see the tape clearly embedded. Yeah, there's something there too. I don't know if that's a piece of rice or what that is in there. Can't be. What that is. Anyway, regardless, once this has got some profile, I think that it's going to look really, really cool. When you're doing this, this will... I am a little surprised by this. These are roughed up really, really well. But they're still not sticking to the epoxy as good as I'd hoped. Now, there isn't a whole lot of surface area, so you got to be careful because I could easily pick that out and pull that right off. So when this is spinning, of course, if you hit it, like I did with the Hercules, it'll actually break a piece off. And it actually pushed the Hercules off and it was sticking up. So you got to watch out for that if you ever do this. Yeah, shavings, hot shavings are landing on my skin. They're still really not that bad though. But overall, I'm liking what I see. So far, so good. So as far as design is concerned, yeah, I don't know. My original plan was to have kind of a bulbous form with a small foot, and that is still a thing. The one thing that I'm kind of curious about is the second pour. And I don't see any witness line at all. There isn't a very big area where it would be. It would be this was the top, so it would be on this end. But I do not see anything that indicates that there's even a witness line there. So that's awesome. So we got to free form this whatever we want. And again, that's why there's no spacers in this. It's not that way. I'm not limited to what I can make with this. Well, anyway, that's going to do it for today. We're going to go pick up my son and my daughter-in-law. I haven't seen them in a year. So we're going to take a few days off and hang out with them. And then I'll be back at this. Let me know what you think so far. So I had 3 days off, and right off the bat, it shows that I had 3 days off because the battery had died in my mic. So that's why there's no sound. So I don't think that I've had 3 days off since our last trip last February. So it was definitely a welcome break. And we went whale watching, being on the east coast of Canada here. That is one of the things that you can do. And we went to St. Andrews, New Brunswick. You can look that up if you wish. Nice little touristy town. And went out in the, well, it's the mouth of the Bay of Fundy, which has the highest tides in the world. And we seen minke whale, bunch of porpoises and seals. So it was good to spend some time with my two sons and my daughter-in-law. Like I said, one I hadn't seen in over, well, it was over a year. So it was nice to see them. We had a great time. And yeah, now that those are kind of cut on that angle, it gives you those big oblong looks. And yeah, more resin chipped out of there. That's some people may question the placement of the pipes, and myself as well. Maybe they should be like maybe one row inward, but in my mind, what I was looking for was long streaks of copper on the outside of this, but it just didn't work out. So what I'm going to do right now is turn a, well, I've already turned a tendon on that, put that in the chuck, and then that way we can put a glue block on the bottom of this. Yeah, I know this is a long casting, but you know, the more, if I need to turn a tendon on the bottom of this, you're robbing size away from it. So that's why I'm going to put a glue block on the bottom. And I'm just going to do some rough shaping here. Again, I find when you cut in the foot and you cut in the top a little bit, the form may appear to you easier. Sometimes it's hard to just stand there and look at something that's mounted between centers when it's just a cylinder and say, yeah, that's what I want to do with this. And again, that was just kind of, there was some loose bamboo there. Yeah, more epoxy gone out of there. As far as this stuff turning is concerned, it was maybe a little bit harder than, say, turn and burl, but I never rotated the cutter once on the Hercules during this process. And yeah, I mean, once you were cut down past those long streaks of copper, then it cut beautifully. Honestly, that's straight up. The other thing that you want to do here also is cut downhill like I am doing right here. If you cut downhill and not against the grain, going uphill is fine as long as they're very light cuts. But if you go downhill, you'll get less of a chance of that epoxy chipping out of the copper pipe. So we finally got our sound back because I realized that the battery had died in my mic, so happy days for that. If you missed last week's video, I mean, it wasn't my intention to use this as a regular upload, but you know, I'm converting my sea container that I moved all of my bowls in from Ontario to New Brunswick here, and I'm going to convert that and turn it into a drying shed. So the first video in that 2-video series was just basically emptying it with my son and I, and making shelves and spray foam in the ceiling. So if you missed that, I will link that at the end of this video. And I'll also put the playlist up for the new house series. That way, if you want to check that out, you can check that out as well. So as the form develops and we give it more shape and contour, then of course visually I find it it's a lot more stunning. I didn't do anything with any of these thermal cracks. I didn't see the point in doing that until I basically had the shape that I wanted, and then I would address them there. There is some risk because what can happen is pieces can break out, but you know, again, I was taking really light cuts with this and not really trying to be too aggressive. That is the Cub Point straight tool. It's a good little tool for getting in around those little tight areas. The Hercules, just the geometry of it, I wasn't able to get down to those tight little areas around the foot. So that's another great tool from Hunter Tool Systems. Just about there as far as getting the glue block is concerned. I didn't put anything on. I don't typically put my glue blocks on until I have my outside shape done. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. It's probably not a real big deal either way. But it is important to rough the surface up with some 60 grit. And lots of volume is also the key. Again, I don't use a a glue gun, I like to dip mine in a hot melt glue vat because I just find that it works a lot better. I will typically let this glue sit for 10 to 15 minutes, and then after that I go ahead and finish shaping it. That's usually all it will take. Might even not need that much. So I'm just going to use the Ellsworth gouge here. I'm going to do something a little different this time on this tenon. I'm going to push on the tenon itself and not on the bottom of the casting. This should still steady things up nicely. Now I've tried this a couple of other times. So the reason why I want to use a glue block like that is because you have a larger surface area on the bottom of the piece you're working on, but you also have the correct size diameter that's going to fit in the chuck for maximum clamping force. So again, I like to use, this is white birch. This is the glue block that I'm using, so you can get a decent bite on it. So that's kind of one, I don't think I've ever shown this method. I may have done it and not even discussed it when I was doing it. But that's one way to get a greater surface area of glue, but still get the right clamping force in your chuck. With all of that said, if I wasn't using a steady rest, and I will be using a steady rest to hollow this, then this method could present some vibration issues. Ordinarily you want the top of the jaws to be resting on the piece you're working on, but in this case, since it was going to be mounted in a steady rest, I didn't really see the big harm in doing it this way. But if you're doing this unsupported, yeah, it's probably best to use a really large glue block and maybe increase the size of your jaws so that you've got that really strong force. But typically when I'm doing any work like this, it's always going to be supported by the steady rest. It's amazing how things change. My original thought was to not have a foot on the bottom of this at all, like you see here. I just wanted to cut it straight off and then just have a really nice clean look. But after I got working this piece and seeing the different angles and how it looks, I decided to leave it. So that's why I could go with a larger diameter glue block than I usually do. I left that clip in there so that you could actually hear the cutter hitting that copper. Again, I think there's just a couple of areas that really need to be fixed up a little bit. For the most part, we've got kind of the shape, except for at the top, that I'm going for. But yeah, you can definitely hear the carbide cutter hitting that copper. Yeah, the more shape it gets, the more I like it. Well, what do you think about her shape? I really wish that this had been bigger around. I think that it would have really popped a lot better than it does. But I mean, don't get me wrong, I think this is still a beautiful thing. But we've got to deal with these thermal cracks. Before we do any hollowing, drilling, I want to take care of those. There's some fairly decent sized ones. And what I'm going to use is the UV resin from Desire Epoxy. And of course, if you haven't seen this being used before, it is cured with a black light or UV light. And I'll just go around, fill these. I think that it's a good idea to do this now. I'll give it a final trimming. Then of course we'll set up the steady rest and take the inside of this out. But yeah, I mean, it's given me a little bit of issues. You really got to be careful when you're kind of getting down closer to an area like this. You got to really kind of slow down your feed rate, or else, well, you just can't be aggressive with it at all. I'm not going to color the resin. I'm just going to put it in as it is, and then of course cure it. Takes about, I'll probably leave it. I've got 2 lights, so I can do a fairly large section. So I'll probably leave it on for 2 or 3 minutes per area, and then trim it, and we'll take the inside out. After I get the crack filled like I think it's filled. And I'm just going to push it down inside with my glove. So I'm just going to keep going around this, and I'll bring it back when we are all ready to trim it again. So what I did was I filled those areas and just quickly set them so that they wouldn't run. And then after that, I took this piece off the lathe and then set up the lights around it and then fully cured it that way. And just so everybody knows, unfortunately, Designer Epoxy cannot ship the UV resin to the US at this time. They are shipping their epoxy, and again, you can use my code InlayJim at your checkout for your discount. But right now, it's only the epoxy and nothing else. Unfortunately, as it stands, some of their products are not CUSMA compliant. The UV resin is one of them, and their pigments. So we're hoping that eventually this will all get sorted out, and they'll be able to ship more than just their epoxy to the US, ship their whole line, because they really do make fantastic products. But we'll have to see how this goes in the future here. As far as drilling this piece out is concerned, I think I started with 1 1/8 inches or 1 1/4 inches, and then I think this is 2 2 1/8, I think is the size of this bit, maybe 2 inch. Anyway, it drilled fine. I don't think that I got into any of the copper pipes until maybe at the bottom here. But again, it's copper and it cuts quite easily. That bamboo, though, it's pretty tough stuff. Could reach the bottom, so that is a tailstock extender. You can get those at any place that sells wood turning supplies. And yeah, just give my Jacob's a nice little tap, hold it in place. There are slots on it, so it won't spin. But you know, if you don't tap it in to seat it properly, then you know you could have some issues with it vibrating in this kind of business. So I always try to seat it nicely to make sure that doesn't happen. We are all set up and ready for hollowing. This is the one-way captive system from oneway.ca. Going to stick with the large boring bar for now. Might be able to even do the whole thing with this. And of course, we're going to be using the retrofit tool from Hunter Tool Systems. This is the 3/16 size. And also my modified laser. Don't really need it right now. We just need to open up some room inside of here so we have a larger cavity, so we don't have to shut the lathe off every 10 seconds. All right, let's see how we do. I cut the vast majority of the hollowing out of this video because there was just way too much of it. There really was. The only thing that I noticed when hollowing this piece with the copper pipes is that you can, when you get into, once you cut the pipe, say, in half, it's very easy to work. But until you do that, you can definitely, it's kind of grabby and it kind of wants to push the tool off, and then you end up getting dig-ins and you know this kind of business. So, but once you kind of cut through the pipe, then it's not a problem at all. It actually, I would say, in most cases, burl might be harder to turn than this. So yeah, I mean, give it a try. It's a neat look. It's incredibly time consuming to do, but you know, like I mentioned earlier, we're definitely going to be making more projects with this. There are lots of different things you could do. You could put the copper pipes inside of the bamboo and then do all multicolored. I mean, it just depends on how much work you want to put into it, because it's a pile of work for sure. But I mean, you really can't argue with the results and the way it looks. As far as the thermal cracking with deep cast, you know, I was a little surprised by that. And again, I think it's a volume thing and the fact that the epoxy cannot regulate its heat. It's trapped inside of that cavity, and that's the main reason why it thermal cracked. So possibly a solution to that is taking these pieces and just, leaving them on the shop floor where it's cool for them to harden up that way. And then hopefully you won't get so much thermal cracking. You could also put it in the fridge. That's another option. I do plan on buying a small freezer to do extremely large castings with. So that will be coming up in the future down the roads at some point. That is the double bent bar. I'll just talk about that. So you have to raise the tool rest for this to work because it's a smaller diameter bar. The other one is a 1 inch, and this one I think is a 5/8, something like that. 5/8 or ½ inch? I think it's 5/8. Regardless, it does vibrate more than the larger boring bar. So anyway, throwing these pieces like this into a cooler environment to cure may be the answer to this. But honestly, I didn't think it was going to be an issue, and that's why I didn't do it. I thought that, the fact that there wasn't huge amounts of it in these pieces, that I wasn't going to have a problem. But, as you can see, there was. So that is the Trent Bosch scraper. I've basically gotten down to the final inside dimension that I'm looking for. I tried to use the endoscope from Craig, and I didn't pay close attention to the camera when it was pointing at my phone because it basically was nothing but glare. So that's why we're not going to see that in this video. But when I was looking at my phone, it looked good, but after reviewing the footage, it was all just kind of a glare. So next time, we'll definitely use it next time. And I just put the scraper onto the large boring bar because at the very bottom I wanted to clean that up so that so it was just nicer down there. That way we are going to do an epoxy coat on this, and that will definitely fill in any little areas that may have chipped out along the way. But for the most part, it was actually pretty clean on the inside. And I'm actually kind of really surprised by that due to the fact that there's copper pipe embedded in this. This week I was kind of asked to talk about the pressure pot and kind of its role. And the idea with the pressure pot is that it's going to compress any bubbles that may remain in the epoxy and push that epoxy into areas that it ordinarily wouldn't flow. Vacuum chamber will do that through the use of vacuum, and the pressure pot will do that, of course, through pressure. Now, the downfall to just pouring the epoxy into those bamboo pieces and then letting it cure on the shop floor is the fact that you may end up with bubbles. But now Deepcast has a long open time, and for the most part, the majority of those bubbles are going to come to the surface, and it's not going to be an issue. But it certainly can be, and this is where the combination of the vacuum chamber and the pressure pot together will give you a superior casting over just casting one on the bench. So that's the main role of the pressure pot. I have two of them. One's 14.5 inches in diameter and one is 12.5 inches in diameter. And usually I've got something in one or both of them at the same time. So definitely recommend getting a pressure pot and a vacuum chamber if you can swing the cost. So I'm happy with the way this is. Now I'm just going to sand this from 60 to 180 and we'll be able to do our epoxy coat. It's been a long time coming. What I have here is 3 ounces of the Pro Series. It's a 2-to-1, so it's nice and thin, so it'll flow well. So I'm going to dump it in, swish it around, and dump it out. Leave it upside down for about 10 minutes, and then we'll do the outside. See you in 10. Honestly, this probably didn't need to happen, but there were some areas that just needed a little bit of filling, so that's why I decided to do the epoxy coat this week. But, overall, I mean, it really was filled in nicely, and just wanted to make sure that all those thermal cracks were full. Well, what do you think of that? Yeah, that might be my number one right there. Yeah, that epoxy is awesome. The randomness of it, I think, is really cool too. How these are cut in half. That's really cool there between the two pieces. I'm trying to, that hyper shift, I'm not getting any of the other color in it. Regardless. Yeah. Let me know what you think. It is definitely top 5. See you tomorrow when we send this back and get the first coat of Waterlux on it. Let me know what you think. So here we are the next day. That's what we're looking at. No bubbles at all. That's pretty much to be expected, I would think. Yeah, I just got done editing this video and we're at an hour and 7 minutes so far. So I had 11 hours of footage to edit and we're not even done yet. I dropped down a grit when I initially started here. I'm starting at 120 and I'm going to go to 600. I went to 600 last week and I didn't really see, I guess it was the week before, didn't really see a noticeable difference. So maybe I'll try it again, and if things seem to be all right, then I might stick with it. Again, that is the Triple E buffing compound from the Beal buffing system, and that should give you about 1,000 to 1,200 surface when you're done with it. And the other important thing, of course, is to clean it off with the denatured alcohol. That way you're not going to have any adhesion issues when the finish goes on. Because if you don't do this, you definitely will. So we're going to skip the sealer coat this time around, and this is what we're going to be using, Waterlux Original Gloss. Still getting emails, people asking me what I'm using to apply these finishes, and they're just lint-free cotton rags. Old t-shirt materials will work perfect. Well, there it is in its original coat from Waterlux. Yeah. So cool. I really like that. Man, I'm going to need a lot more bamboo. It is super labor intensive, but I mean, come on. Just awesome. Love it. That's what it looks like down inside. I know you guys probably can't see that well. And I'm sorry that the footage didn't work out with the endoscope from Craig. Anyway, let me know what you think. If there's another coat, and there may not be, this may do it. I will do it the same as this. I'll buff it and then put it on, after cleaning it. Other than that, we'll see when we're doing the foot. Let me know. I decided to mount this between centers. This is probably the majority of the people probably would do it this way, so I thought I would show that this week. So I'm just going to use the Ellsworth gouge to whittle down the majority of it and take away that glue, as much of that glue as you can. And then I'm going to switch to the Hercules. The Hercules will get clogged up with that glue, so that's why I like to get rid of as much of it as possible before going to the Hercules. So I'm just going to use my right angled air-powered sander. Started sanding at, I think it was 120, went all the way to 400. And then I'm just going to knock this piece off on the bench and then sand it by hand. But you know, when I was doing it like this, I just wasn't really happy with the results. It was just really, it's so high up off of the table, it's hard to hold on to and keep steady. So I put it back on the vacuum chuck this time around, taking very light cuts because you can see the overhang. We're quite a long ways off the headstock here, and it'd be very easy to pull that off of the vacuum chuck. So that's going to do it for the video. Thank you so much for watching, especially the people that watched all the way through. A special shout out to the members. Thank you so much for your support. I really do appreciate it. Let's have a last chat about this beautiful hull form. Well, it's going to be interesting to see what you guys think about this. Yeah, could be my number one. Let me know what you think. It is, like I said in the video, it is definitely top 5 for sure. See, even trying to show down inside of there. I guess you can see. It's not too bad for just tooling. This is what I've decided to do with the bottom. I didn't show it because I'm just running out of time here. It's just way too long. I was going to engrave this, and I had the engraver in my hand, and there's so many different things on the bottom here that for me, I don't think that it was going to look good. So I decided to just sign on the red parts, or the hypershift parts, and should be still visible after the finish goes on there. It will take at least 2 on the bottom. Size on this is 6.5 inches at its widest dimension and 8.5 inches tall. That's what we finished it at. We will definitely be working with this stuff in the future, and I mean, I'm just really happy with this, and hopefully you guys are as well. And I will mention that this is for sale. Please send me an email to spraguewoodturning@gmail.com. And you know, at this point, I really don't know what I'm going to charge for this. Maybe I'll take bids on it. I don't know. If you're interested in this piece, send me an email with your bid, and we'll go from there. And I mean, look at that top. The only thing, and we'll see this at the rotating footage at the end, wherever I filled those thermal cracks, you're going to see those. But you know, if that's just sitting on a table somewhere, that is absolutely beautiful. Anyway, let me know. Don't forget to put designer epoxy in the comments down below to be entered into the next 3-gallon giveaway at 145,000 subscribers, and we are so close now. So I don't know if it'll be next week or the week after, but definitely within 3 weeks, I would say we're going to be doing a giveaway. So please leave a comment down below, and it doesn't matter where you are in the world. Whatever I make and give away, I will ship it to you. Unfortunately, when it comes to the epoxy, that's only for continental USA and Canada. Next week, we're going to be doing a casting that involves deep cast and color separation, and it's through the casting stage, and I must say that it looks pretty nice. Not exactly sure what I'm going to make with it, but that'll be next week, so please come on back for that. Don't forget that hype button. Again, YouTube is always evolving. By hitting that hype button, apparently that'll push my content to others, so I would greatly appreciate that. And again, the video length, you know, if you're new here, this is basically an instructional wood turning channel, resin turning channel, epoxy turning channel, whatever you want to call it, copper pipe turning channel now. And so in order for me to show all the steps involved in that, well, it takes time to do that. So that's why my videos are typically longer than most you're going to see here on YouTube involving wood turning. All right, well, that's it. Have yourselves a fantastic weekend, and hopefully we'll see you back here next week for another cool video. Take care.